I was actually working on a feature film in the occupied territories and pre-production, writing a script, and had a lot of difficulty getting it off the ground because of the political situation there. So I focused then in the refugee camps where there is a bit more access and willingness to cooperate and work together. So that's why I decided to make this short.
My inspiration for this actually came from like flicking through, there was nothing on TV, and I was flicking through and came across a random BBC documentary about the rain and watched it for about 10 minutes. And there ended up being this very short section that was about this man called George James Simons, who formed the British Rainfall Organisation in the 1860s in England. And the thing that drew me to the idea of trying to make a film about the rain was that he had specifically asked for volunteers of both sexes when he asked for volunteers. And I like to make movies about women doing cool things. And there aren't a lot of women in science that get their stories told. And I got a grant from the Sloan Foundation, who support films about scientists. And so, yeah, that's where that came from.
Any questions from the audience? I'll keep going. Okay, can we talk a little bit about your casting process? We have a cast member here too. Could you maybe, I mean, whoever wants to go first, but you all have really stellar actors, actresses, and did you write anything specifically for them? Did you, like, what was the process like?
I'll be really quick. Mine actually came through, I knew a couple of agents in London, and then my producers, who are Wigwam Films, who also produced Under the Shadow, which is showing in Midnights here next week, so you should see it. They knew some of these agents, and Hermione Norris is kind of a big deal in terms of TV in England, and she was a real get for us. And yeah, we just kind of used people who we could get to. We didn't have a casting director.
Mariam Omar Ahmed, the girl you saw, just actually fell in our lap. We went to the refugee camps with a script, the DP and I, and we were going to scout, and we were going to go to different schools to see who would be willing to work with us. And she happened to be in the same room where I was having this discussion with my contact there, who was going to help us go from school to school. And she was the daughter of this man, and she was sitting in the corner and rolled her eyes when her mom asked her to bring us tea. And I kept staring at her, and the DP was looking at me, looking at her. And then, yeah, kind of on the spot, I basically asked if she would be willing, because she fit so closely to the person that I had imagined. And she was equally surprised at how much the person in the script was like her. So it was kind of a perfect match.
Do you want to talk about it? Well, we were part of a class where the first semester there would be writers come in and workshop scripts for a whole semester. And then they brought in the directors, and we got to kind of pick our scripts, and there was actors in the class. It was kind of like a fun collaboration between the theater department and the film department at UT. And so Shania was in the class, and then outside of that role, we just went out and did a normal casting call in Austin. And we got Stephanie back there. Congratulations from Mrs. Hart. You want to talk about learning how to rap?
Yeah, I was going to ask you if you, are you a rapper?
No, not by any means. Nick told me that these were the lyrics, and this is where we're going. And we went in there and we did. That was literally it, and it was mortifying. It was a completely outer body experience, but it happened. It happened, and it felt great. So I'm, yeah, really happy.
I got super lucky with my cast. The first person who said yes was Brian Garrity, who was the police officer, and he's on, I think, Chicago PD or something like that. And I had seen him years ago in a movie called Easier with Practice, which is an excellent movie.
So good.
So good. And I knew the director of that, so sort of through there and through his management company, who I had a friend at, I got him the script, and he said yes, because he likes doing cool, creative, smaller things. That same company also represented Uzo Aduba from Orange is the New Black, so I had a couple of long conversations with her, and she signed on, and then I was looking for a young African-American person to play Dorian Johnson, the witness. And so I watched a lot of movies, one of them being Short Term 12, which I'd never seen, and Keith Stanfield is in that film. He's absolutely amazing. And I got in contact with him and his manager, and I went over his house, and we talked for a long time, and basically it was a lot of me talking at people trying to convince them to do it, and they all said yes.
You must be very good at convincing people to do things.
I guess so.
Noted.
Or they just want me to stop talking, and they're like, okay, fine.
Any questions? You guys are so quiet, really? Okay.
Are there going to be any more in that verbatim series? Because like the chicken one, oh my god.
Oh, thank you. That's cool that you've seen that. So yeah, there's about 4 of them online right now. There's one about a photocopier. There's this one. There's one about a guy who loves chickens. You just have to watch it, I guess. And there's one about a guy who can't do math. So it's kind of ongoing with the times. So we're talking about more things to do, and I'll probably put together some sort of slate for them for a bunch more, because I would love to do it. And if there's any lawyers in the audience that want to give me any verbatim transcripts, please come see me after, because I'm always looking for new stuff.
You had a question?
Yeah. I'm from Algiers, by the way.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Helen, can you tell us more about the Western Sahara and all the refugees and the deal with them and so forth and so on?
What was it like
Maybe
working
a little bit
there?
more historical perspective. Well, Tindouf is in Algeria. It's not.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know where to start, but so basically, Western Sahara is split in 2 right now between the refugee camps and the occupied territories, which is occupied by Morocco. And it's been that way since 1975, when Spain pulled out and kind of did a backdoor deal with Mauritania and Spain. Mauritania and Morocco selling the country to both parts. So there's been long story short, there's been a truce since 1991 that the UN had both sides agree upon, but and the deal was that they would help Sahara regain autonomy, but it hasn't happened. So since 1991, it's basically been at a standstill. And so in the refugee camps, there's over 200,000 refugees living there. And right now, in occupied territories, there are maybe 300,000 Western Saharans, and probably more, but it's impossible to get a census on the population. So yeah, it's kind of at a horrible standpoint, and the reason why I made this film really is also because there's this urgency now with the Arab Spring happening here and there, or the kind of aftermath of it. There are a lot of young people who are looking to change the status quo and maybe turn to war instead of waiting for diplomacy to settle their accounts.
I've got another question. What can you each tell us? Maybe what was the most challenging part of making this particular film? If it was a certain part of production, if it was a certain staging of writing, or like what was the thing for you that was like, oh my god, I don't know if this is going to happen? Besides, if it's the whole thing or not, I don't know, but
our biggest thing was dealing with having her in a tree safely in a corset with harnesses outside in Yorkshire in like what was meant to be spring, but actually it was kind of winter. Yeah, the harnesses and the corsets. Yeah.
I think for me was partially getting the rights to film there. You have to go through the Algerian consulate and the Sahrawi government, and with the fear always that Morocco is kind of watching over what I'm doing, and how would that jeopardize, I have family in Morocco, and how would that jeopardize my relationship with them and my entry even into the country. So that's kind of the hardest logistical part.
Well, we just had a really great time making our movie. I don't know, the whole time I just kept telling Nick, like, it's gonna be okay, we're gonna get through this. And he was like, no. Even earlier, before we watched it, he was like, ah. Just staving away the panic on it then.
Yeah, it was all just kind of a blast learning experience, and it's my first festival. I'm just excited to be here. And yeah, what was your?
I broke a window on the UT campus and I injured my knee, so I don't know what the insurance situation was, but I'm so sorry, you guys.
Public apology.
It was really, yeah.
For me, there are two main difficult parts. One was the grand jury transcripts were about 5,000 pages. So I had to read through those and kind of creatively cull in on what I thought would be dramatically compelling in kind of the short space that I had and the money that I had. And then the second thing is, because it's verbatim, it's easier in a way that there's no creative conversation on set in terms of an actor saying that they can make the line better, because they can't. But the flip side of that is they have to really know their lines. And you know, one of the actors, I won't say who, said it was one of the most difficult things they ever did in terms of, you know, memorizing that dialogue.
And then one more question to wrap it up. Can you tell us a little bit about what else you're working on, if you have any new projects? I mean, you talked a little bit about the series. Is there anything else? We'll go down the line.
Sure, yeah. So that series, just keep an eye on verbatim New York Times, and you can see the rest of the episodes on the Times. And right now I'm working on a documentary about the internet.
Morgan and I are working on a pre-production for a feature film called Civil. We're looking to hopefully shoot it in January.
Yeah. I mean, I work in Austin. I'm usually a gaffer, so it's always fun to like DP things. It's like a new role, but I work on all sorts of things just around the year.
I'm still going to try to make that feature film set in occupied territories. And I am also simultaneously working on another feature set in Japan about the Ainu people in the Northern Ireland.
I am just finishing up a draft of my first feature, which involves no corsets and no period stuff, and it's two sisters in Brooklyn, which is where I live.
What's your background?
So I'm English. So that's a big one. Yeah, so I did history as an undergrad at Cambridge in England, and then did grad school I got my MFA from NYU grad film in New York, so I've been in New York about 6 years.
I'm half Japanese and American, and I studied, I got my BFA at the Slade School in London.
I'm from Texas. I live in Austin, and I went to UT, and I got a degree in radio, TV, film.
Yeah.
And
Same here. From Dallas, though. Dallas!
I'm originally from India, and I'm currently pursuing my BA, Bachelor of Arts in Theater and Dance with an acting focus at UT. And I graduate in May, and then either I move back to India or I stay here. Totally no idea what I'm doing.
I majored in biology at Tufts University, so not that. And then my background comes from kind of the web world and comedy stuff on the web, and I did a couple web series, the most popular of which is this web series called Honest Trailers, which I co-created. That's kind of where it came from.
Well, thank you guys so much for being here. Let's give them one more round of applause. They will be outside in the lobby. You're welcome to chat with them more out there. Don't forget to vote and tell your friends. It screens again tomorrow.